I was really worried about shooting this episode for you today. So if you're seeing and hearing this right now, I've stuck to my word, and I totally understand that this topic might seem a little bit odd coming from me, but I think there is some really important practical use for this. Because why would you even want to consider semen retention, practicing semen retention? And yes, guys, I'm talking about not jizzing as often as you probably are right now, and doing it for the purposes of having more self-discipline, higher self-esteem, higher self-control, being able to increase your stamina, focus, and motivation amongst other things as well. And it's my promise in this episode that I'm going to be completely open and upfront, and I want you to know that I'm making this promise to you. I'm going to lay this all down, and I want you to take what is going to be useful, and I want you to discard the rest as well. But also, to make this episode as highly valuable as possible, I'm bringing you on two men, the two men that have been the biggest impact with me, well, in multiple areas of life, to be perfectly honest, but these two guys actually got me into this practice and taught me so much when it came to this practice as well. So I wanted them to come on to be able to help you as well. And importantly, I don't want to be talking about the woo-woo stuff when it comes into this, because for me, I was put off this at the very beginning because there were so many guys out there talking the language that they were using, the way they were talking about it, the promises they were making with it, just really put me off, to be perfectly honest. And so I want you to be able to stick with me to the end with this, because I'm going to be sharing three practices that I think are actually quite simple and easy to follow through with if you actually follow through and have some really big benefits to this. But also, if you think it's hypocritical that me, a father of four, is sharing an episode with you about semen retention, I'm laughing with you as well. Because if you told me not that long ago that I'd be sharing an episode with you about the topic of semen retention, I would have thought I would have given myself an uppercut. But here I am sharing this with you, and there's no uppercut. So in just a second, I'm going to introduce you to first Nick Broadhurst, one of my closest friends, an amazing, remarkable man that is a highly successful entrepreneur and is successful, honestly, in so many areas of life. A very multidimensional man, and someone that I really want you to be able to listen to as well. He's taught me, he's opened my eyes so much. And then there's also Dane Thomas, a man that can have many labels upon him. Again, a successful entrepreneur, a man that also has vast experience actually teaching in this topic as well. So you're really going to want to listen to Dane and Nick, and hopefully myself as well. And so just earlier this week, I posted on Instagram that I was going to be sharing and shooting this episode for you, and I got flooded with DMs from men and women that I really appreciated you being able to come through. And firstly, I want to talk to the guys, because you sent through amazing questions. There are a lot of guys that were never heard of this before. There are some that are interested in it because they've heard a little bit about it before. And there are others that have been practicing this that wanted to be able to have further mastery into it as well. There was also messages from younger guys that really wanted to be able to have more control around their sex lives as well, because they could see it, that it was causing some problems, to much older gentlemen as well that wanted to be able to have greater mastery. And this is, I think, really important. But I also want to talk to the partners of the men that are practicing this or even not practicing this as well. Had some amazing messages come through, some amazing women that have been able to have feedback from them being with partners that did practice this, and they absolutely loved it, to men that did not practice this with they did not love it. So this might be another motivation as well, because I think that we should first start with why. Why will we want to even consider this? Why would you even want to watch or listen to this any further right now? And I think that's something really important, because for me, I was someone that wanted to be able to be a great lover for my partner. I wanted to be great bed. You want to be able to be the best sexual partner for the person that you're with, and you want to blow their minds, and you want to be able to have an amazing experience for yourself. So if that's you, there's even a little bit of a nod of your head right now. Great, because that was me. That was my motivation. And then there's even the concept of a man being able to have multiple orgasms. A man that's being able to last as long as he possibly wants to as well, which is something that we're going to dive into in this episode, because I want you to understand that you ejaculating and you having an orgasm are two different things. You don't have to have both in the same as well. And I know that might be a little bit of a what the right now, because when I first got told that, I was like, I thought you had to ejaculate to have an orgasm. Not so. So we're going to dive into that. And this is where I want to be able to bring together the practical use case stuff, the stuff that you and me as guys can actually use to be able to live a better life. Because I think there's too many people out there, especially in the Tantra crowd, that might be hyping this stuff, making it actually a little bit too complicated. And when someone says, hey, genitals store a person's life force and vitality, which definitely comes from a Taoist point of view, which I can vibe with. But if you quivered when I just said life force and it being stored in your genitals, I totally get it. You don't have to believe that. You can totally just put that down right now. Forget about it. If you want to pick it up and run with it, go for it. Doesn't bother me either way. Because I also find it amusing that it might be one of the most popular business books that get recommended, which is Think and Grow Rich. But when I talk to someone actually going deep into, well, what are the things that you've been able to extract and use from the book Think and Grow Rich? One of the chapters on sexual transmutation, I kind of get a just deer in headlights look. And I think it might be because some guys just glanced across the chapter, didn't even really get into it. Well, they didn't even read that far into the book in the first place. But it's interesting, especially as high-level entrepreneurs, one of the most recommended business books actually talks to what we're talking about in this episode. So honestly, enough of me right now. Let's bring on Nick and let's actually get into this. Now, for me, Nick's recommendation, the first recommendation, the resource for me to be able to get into was Mantak Chia's Multi-Orgasmic Man. And this is where I want to be able to bring on Dane to talk about how he got into this, which was a vastly different avenue from how I got into it. Now, before we go any further into this, I want to share with you what my one small perspective change was that I feel like was absolutely gigantic to me being able to actually practice this with my wife, with my partner, and being able to successfully do it. And well, to be honest, me saying this right now, it seems completely obvious. But anyway, let's go with this. I completely changed my shift, my perspective, my focus to be, I just am all about her, Lauren, my wife, in bed in this experience right now. It had nothing to do with me. I put my wants and my pleasure and me wanting to ejaculate, orgasm, have a good time, completely off to the side. And I was like, no, this is all about you. This is all about her. I want this to be absolutely nothing short of magnificent and to be able to have that focus. And it was me putting my wants and desires to the side to be able to focus on this that made it actually really easy to then actually get into these practices and stick with this and to make it work as well. And it sounds like I was a complete prick just thinking about myself from the get-go, and that's probably true as well. But thankfully from that shift, I think I've been much better and being able to think much more about the partner rather than myself. And next, I want to answer one question where actually I got a lot of DMs coming from where it was guys thinking that this is about just either not having sex, never masturbating, never ejaculating ever again. And that is not the case whatsoever. It's simply about being more conscious of it. Now, for me right now, I want to share with you how I go about this. I probably ejaculate only once every 7 to 14 days. Is there a hard number that I stick with? Like, oh, I only do it every 10 days on the day to the minute? Absolutely not. I call that the rectal extraction method, where I'm just pulling a number out of my ass at the end of the day. It's completely arbitrary. It's got to go by feel. Now, if you want to be able to stick with, oh, I'm only going to do it once every 7 days because you feel like that boundary and that rule makes it easier to follow through with at the start, I totally get that. And then you can kind of relax into more of an intuitive feel later on. I want to jump in and say thank you for listening and supporting the show, as at the moment we don't run any ads on the show. And if you're getting value, if you're loving the show, then I invite you right now to share this episode. Share this directly to a friend or share it on your socials. And when you do share it on social, please tag me so I can personally say thank you to you. My social handle is @Chris Dufey. That's Chris Dufey, as it means a huge deal to me, as this show is about us coming together as a community to help each other grow, as I really do believe that a rising tide lifts all ships. So take your screenshot, grab the link and share it with a friend that you think could get value out of this together. It will put a huge smile on my face and I very much appreciate it. Now I want to have Dane answer this because I think it's really important to see different perspectives of other men and how they're applying it into their life. And yes, guys, he said 2 to 3 to 4 hour sessions, not your typical 10 to 15 minutes banging it out. So now let's get into the actual benefits of why we're going to want to do this in the first place as well. And Nick and Dane really talk to this so importantly. And again, I want to be able to bring home the concept for you, at least to be able to grasp a little bit. And that is having the difference between orgasm and ejaculation, them not being the exact same things. And this is why I want you to listen to these dudes, because they've got some really great experience to be able to share with you. If you're thinking about getting started with this practice, I want to be able to answer some key questions, some key difficulties, some key roadblocks that might come up for you. Because for me, one of the biggest problems that happened, especially when beginning, was I was not able to control my arousal. Whenever I kind of got to like the 8, 9, 10 out of 10 arousal level, you go too far, you spill over the top, you ejaculate, you come, you can't help yourself. Now, there are things that you can do if you go too far that you're able to actually not ejaculate. I'm not going to cover that in this episode. We can dive into that into a later episode if you want to, and it's also covered into the multi-orgasmic man. But I think it's really important, one of the key things for you to be able to take away is understanding of the awareness and being able to control the arousal level for you so you can have waves of it rather than just this kind of like hockey stick of you starting and then coming and then falling asleep pretty much at the end of the day. We don't want that. We want to be able to control and have awareness for this. So let's get into the practices of what it is that you can actually apply from today. Now, when Nick first introduced this to me, I still do this practice to today. So if you ever hear me wee and there's some stop starting going on, you'll know why. Now, Dane really brilliantly shares some insights. Do not skip over this. This is highly valuable. So as of practices, the first ones, we have you being able to have your 6 stop starts when you're actually urinating, going to the toilet. Then there's the second practice, which is Dane's the daily self-arousal, to be able to experiment and to be able to get more aware of how it actually is. Because let's be perfectly honest, I think as a teenager, you go, oh, I've got a dick. Amazing. It's hard. And what usually happens is you try and rub one out as fast as possible to be able to get to ejaculation, and you do that as many times as you possibly can. Anyway, that was my experience. And so I want to be able to kind of re-entrain myself to that not be the thing. Not, oh, I get aroused, I get hard, and then I run to the point and to be able to come as quickly as possible. I don't think that's good. That's not smart. And I don't think that's healthy for the relationship as well. Our partners don't want that. That's not self-discipline. That's not self-mastery. That's not creating self-discipline, all that stuff. And so the third practice that I'm going to be able to lay down here for you to possibly do, if you want to be able to do, is any spare time for you to be able to do your pelvic floor exercises. If you're waiting in the car at a red light, if you find yourself in just some absolute dead time, hell, you could just do it right now, watching the episode, listening to a podcast. This is something that's really easy to do. No one knows that you're going to be able to do this. And so this is being able to learn to be able to contract your pelvic floor and only your pelvic floor. And I'm not going to go into the depths of this. If you want me to be able to have a quick episode of actually going into the deep practices of this, I'm more than happy to do that. Just please let me know and I'm going to bring that to light to you. But this is where you can just learn to contract your pelvic floor. And for me, the recommendation is contract it and just contract for 5 seconds, hold, and then release. Now, there's 2 other kind of like levels that you can be able to learn with this as well, which is slowly contract your pelvic floor and then release. So you're going to have completely relaxed and then you slowly contract your pelvic floor over 2, 3, 4 seconds, hold it and then release. And then you can do that for, let's say, 10 reps. I'm a meathead, do you know what I mean, a gym junkie. So I'm going to be using these analogies of reps and sets. So then after you have just a stop, start contraction, then you have a slow release and relax. Then what you can do is then you contract, hold the contraction for 2 to 3 seconds, and then slowly release it back out. So what you're doing here is you're learning to be able to contract, you're learning to be able to slowly contract, slowly release, and then you're learning to be able to contract the other way around as well. So this gives you better control, better autonomy over what's happening with your pelvic floor. And I think as well, it just means you're not going to get boring if you just like stop, starting, contracting, not contracting, doing it that way. But for me, if you're able to do 3 sets, 10 reps of each, I think that's great, especially because you can fit this in any dead time. So I really hope you've been able to take something from this episode. Honestly, it took me a bit to be able to pucker up and want to be able to share this episode with you because I was like, God knows what I'm doing talking about semen retention, but this is the thing. I actually think it's important. I actually think there's practical use of it as well. And I want to be able to share these things that can be of practical use for you. So I'd love to know what it is that you've been able to take away from this episode. I'd love to know what other questions you have. I'd love to know what else I can dive into in future episodes around this and obviously other topics to be able to help you as much as possible. And also, I want to say thank you so much to Nick and Dane for coming on and sharing their wisdom and their experience in this. Guys, thank you. I love you. You're amazing. And I also highly suggest that you go follow them as well, because they are remarkable women and they have so much value to the world. And I've been able to learn so much. I know I'm very confident you'll be able to learn so much as well. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sticking with me into this episode. If you like this episode, please click like. Let me know what you've been able to learn from this. Let me know what any feedback is in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed, please be sure to subscribe to the show, because it would be a bummer if you missed out on all the upcoming episodes. So thank you again. I appreciate you. Have an amazing day. I'll see you in the next episode.